Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of SpeedGeeks, a NASCAR podcast, the newest and fastest podcast covering all things NASCAR. I am your host, Kaleb McChesney. Alongside me are three good friends. To my bottom there, that is Chris Prince, my coworker at BellyUp Sports. To my I guess that would be right, left. I don't know. Is Cam Guy in the Ryan Blaney hoodie. Shout out to the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series champion. And then to the below of him is our good friend BR. This is our debut episode, the pilot. And this episode is going to be really about getting you guys used to us, introducing you to what we're going to do here ahead of the Clash in Bowman Gray and then obviously Daytona. So yeah, let's just go around the table and introduce ourselves. Chris, I'll start with you at the bottom. Give everybody a little flavor of what you are, and yeah.
Yeah, been a NASCAR fan pretty much since I was a kid. Grew up watching it with my dad, probably like most of us. Well, Caleb's a little newer fan here, but I'm not too aware of Cam and BR just yet. But I'm an Elliott fan. I grew up probably 30 minutes away from Dawsonville, Georgia, so I kind of was indoctrinated in the siren and all the good stuff that comes with that. But I've been with BellyUp Sports since 2019. Running the racing department. You can see my X handle, NASCAR for Everyone. I run my own Facebook page and stuff. Just been looking to break in, hopefully, to the NASCAR coverage field, and hopefully it'll be fun with this group of guys we got right here.
And obviously, we've been collaborating on pieces for probably a good portion of I guess, 2 years.
Yeah,
2023 and 2024. Yeah, 2 seasons under the belt. I'm a seasoned veteran now. And obviously this year we'll continue our betting picks. I'll continue bring back the 3 up, 3 down. You'll obviously have your power rankings. You already have your bold predictions up. So we can go visit those at some point today as well. Revisit the ones I had last year, which BR helped me out with, and it didn't end up being too far from the truth. And with that quick transition, I'll send it right to BR. BR, tell us who you are, what you're all about, and yeah.
Howdy. I'm BR. Growing up in Denver, there's not a whole lot of NASCAR around here, so really I got into it more full time. Like I casually know like the big people from like 2010s and such, but really it wasn't until the pandemic where I had nothing else to watch that I got into it. I'm like into NASCAR and such. So yeah, I was a fan of Martin Truex Jr. since he won a Cup championship with the Denver-based team, but now since he is basically retired, even though he will be in the Daytona 500 probably, I have moved my allegiances to 23XI, mainly Bubba Wallace, although I certainly like Reddick and Herbst too.
Yeah, that'll be something to go over all the new faces and new places like Riley Herbst with 2311 and Michael McDowell Inspire and all the other things that are going on. That was a good transition into that as well. Cam, you're up. Tell us who you are, what you're all about, and like everybody else did.
I'm Cam. I live in Michigan currently. I did grow up in Alabama, though. I grew up an hour or so out of Talladega. That was my home track when I was young. I grew up kind of like a fan of a lot of drivers. I was mostly a Jimmy Johnson and Denny Hamlin fan when I was a kid, but I didn't really have a solid one driver until Ryan Blaney came along. I don't really have like a really nice concise reason as to why, but since he really broke into the series, pretty much since he won Pocono, and with the Wood Brothers, I've been a Blaney fan. So yeah, I grew up with racing, and here I am.
Very good. And then I'll introduce myself again. My name's Kaleb. as Chris pointed out, newer fan. Last 2 years or so, I grew up in New Hampshire Motor Speedway, my home track. I've been twice the last 2 years. Absolutely love going there. I don't hear great things from the TV side of it, but going there, it is a fun trip for sure. Just kind of backed right into being an Alex Bowman fan in 2023. That was hard. But Chicago street race last year made it all worth it. Growing up Jeff Gordon fan. But now I got this Dale Jr. hoodie on, and that's been quite a good addition. So, all right, what's on the docket today? We're going to go ahead and talk about the off-season notes and topics, the 2311 and Front Row Motorsports versus NASCAR lawsuit. And then an OEM discussion sparked by Brad Keselowski in an interview with Kelly Earnhardt Miller earlier this week. We'll talk about some of the roster changes among NASCAR. Obviously, with Stewart Haas Racing evaporated, gone for good. And then any notable rule changes we picked up. Then we'll get right into talking about the clash that's coming up here pretty soon. I believe February 2nd is the date for that.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about 2025, some of the things we're looking forward to, the Amazon Prime TMT coverage, Mexico City, what drivers we're looking for, and then maybe we'll throw out some bold predictions as well. So let's just kick it off here with the 2311 and Front Row Motorsports versus NASCAR updates. Obviously, it's been quite an off-season as far as the legal mumbo jumbo of NASCAR. Obviously, the charter agreement was a huge conversation last year, and now they've kind of stepped into different areas of that lawsuit. Obviously, the courts ruled that NASCAR that it was right that they pulled that part of the charter agreement where they can still be sued for antitrust, right? Like that was the big development.
Yeah, that, and then they had on the 10th, NASCAR had motioned to dismiss the case, but it was actually denied, which was the big thing recently. The reason why the judge kind of said that was, quotes along the lines of, the answers must be found when the parties have a full opportunity to pursue discovery of the relevant facts, and then at trial where the jury will be able to weigh the evidence. So basically, I guess the judge is stating he wants it to go to trial at this point, or that's the way I take it.
No, for sure. Chris, I'll just hand the ball off to you. Do you have any thoughts as far as how far this is developed? Do you have anything as far as how this could impact the season, if this will get done before the Daytona 500 starts, or if there'll be any settlements or anything like that? Like, what's your read on the situation? What's the best course of action?
Yeah, I think you're going to see this probably carry out throughout the season. 2311's made their stance pretty firm on it. So is Front Row. They're both in it for the long haul. They want to, get a ruling that's beneficial to them. I just don't know how it's going to how it's going to work out for them, plus the other teams that already signed that charter agreement. That's what's interesting about it for me, because if NASCAR put a clause in there that the other teams couldn't sue them, then that's going to make it hard for Front Row and 2311 to get anywhere with. There's 5-6 other teams roughly, I guess, right, that have already agreed to this charter.
Were you surprised at all that no other team hopped on this lawsuit when the court ruled that they can't have that part, that you can't sue us for antitrust part of that agreement tossed out? Were you surprised that a big dog like Joe Gibbs or Hendrick or Penske jumped into this at all?
A little bit, especially when you heard Jeff Gordon come out late last year, I believe it was, or late last season. And he said, NASCAR, we haven't made money as a team in so many years or something. It might have been a couple years ago even. But, I could have seen it. But you also have where Richard Childress came out and said if you don't sign it, they're going to pull the charters. So they kind of threatened them. That'll be an interesting type of subject to see if that comes up in court too.
For sure. BR, do you have anything, any thoughts on the lingering lawsuit and how that'll play out for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I can't really imagine that this is going to be ending anytime soon. the trial isn't scheduled to start until after the season. So unless they get a settlement done, it's going to be there the whole season. As for the lawsuit itself, at the very least, I am glad that we're gonna that at least barring any settlement, of course, there will be an opportunity to truly see what the situation is because I don't know all the evidence. I haven't seen all of it, so I don't have a firm opinion beyond. I'm glad that it's not just being swept under the rugs by the courts, and they're giving the teams a fair opportunity to make their case.
No, right. I think there's a huge part of this where it'd be a really bad look if NASCAR was the organization that kicked Michael Jordan out of their sport. For how much attention he kind of brings as a personality, how often he's at the track. Obviously, there was that viral moment. I think it was at Talladega when Tyler Reddick won, and he's carrying around Reddick's son. I think that I'm looking forward to seeing how this all plays out. Cam, do you have any additional thoughts as far as the lawsuit and how it impacts the rest of the season?
I mean, I like what the sentiment is not going to end anytime soon. And, it's pretty much a what measuring contest between 2311 and the Brands family, who have always run NASCAR like the mob. They're extremely power hungry. They don't care what you think. They're willing to lose whoever. It's been run by them the way they want to do it since the foundation of the sport, really. And so they don't have any interest in losing that power grasp for anybody, whether it be Michael Jordan or anyone else. I think the facts are on the team side right now, but again, they're going to do every dirty trick in the book. Like if you're Denny Hamlin, Michael Jordan, if you're Bob Jenkins at front row, you have to start you almost have to have like a irrational fear of like, what if we're leading at Phoenix in the middle of March and all of a sudden a caution comes out that no one can figure out why? Because that's how the France family operates. And so, it's going to drag on until trial because the France family is not going to settle. And 2311 in front row feel like the facts are on their side, so why would they settle? So it's going to last until the bitter conclusion.
Do you have any concerns as far as the lawsuit overshadowing the season or taking anything away from it? Or do you think this will just kind of be a side topic for most of the year until a 2311 car wins? Because let's just assume because Tyler Reddick's that damn good.
I think it's going to depend on the media covers it, to be honest. Because the media kind of or the TV media, I should say, if they kind of don't make it a topic when you're, on Sunday when you turn the TV on, maybe it goes kind of on the side. But I think it's gonna loom more than people realize because it's like we've all said, it's not gonna end anytime soon.
Well, it kind of, if you think about it too, to play off that what you said, Cam, it kind of loomed a little bit last year after Reddick won the regular season championship because there was already starts of it. They were like, are the France is going to have to, hand Reddick the championship trophy at the end of the year with all this lawsuit going on. So, I think you might hear it. It's going to drag out ultimately, but I think that's going to be the big thing. How dominant is 2311 or front row for that matter, because they've been getting better.
No, front row certainly improved, and we'll talk about all the driver changes and additions here in a little bit. But obviously, a part of this lawsuit and whatnot came up when Brad Keselowski was interviewed on one of the Dirty Mo media podcasts with Kelly Earnhardt Miller. Keselowski was asked about potential threats to the sport's long-term future, and he had an interesting answer, to say the least. The first one being, I would say there's a 1A and 1B that are the two biggest threats for me. One is whatever falls out of this charter lawsuit dispute between 2311, Front Row Motorsports, and NASCAR. That is a significant threat to all of NASCAR, which transcends the Cup Series. So how that kind of unfolds is a threat to the sport. And then obviously he talked about the OEMs in NASCAR. Other than the lawsuit, Brad Keselowski has another major concern. OEMs, Chevy, Ford, and Toyota are the three OEMs for NASCAR at the moment. And obviously Dodge jumped ship years ago at this point. That puts NASCAR in a vulnerable position as the auto market and motorsports world continues to change. outside of the lawsuit, the OEM picture and landscape is a significant threat. You know, NASCAR has been operating with 3 OEMs now for probably a decade and a half now. It's a bit of a precarious position to be in. I feel like the sport needs about 4, maybe 5 OEMs to be kind of its max healthy position. And there is like, if one walks away, there's a set of dominoes that fall. And I look at the OEM landscape and the car guys, the next decade is going to be tough for them. They're going to have some really difficult decisions to make. We're continuing to see regulations push battery electric vehicles, the marketing aspect of all that. There's something to be said for that for NASCAR, but it's not that particularly. It's more or less the financial ramifications, as we're seeing companies like Tesla take off and take market share. We're seeing the Asian auto market really take off and take market share from NASCAR OEMs and potentially move into the United States and take market share. Obviously, in recent, I want to say probably in the last year or two, we've heard stuff about maybe Honda jumping in to NASCAR. I haven't followed this story particularly closely until BR brought it up today. And Keselowski makes an interesting conversation about OEMs. Do we know of any potential shooters outside of Honda to maybe hit his 5 or 6 maximum that he mentioned in that article? And obviously, like we said, Honda's interested. Do we know of anything else?
The only big name that's ever come up is Honda, and Honda's been dancing around it for years. I mean, IndyCar's having the same problem. There's 2 in IndyCar, Chevrolet and Honda, and they've been trying to expand it for years. The problem is when you have a sport that is stagnating at best, its ratings, its revenue, all of that, you have to. The idea is if you add more OEMs, there's more money, there's more marketing, there's more interest in the sport. So yeah, when Brad says that, that's why, is because they are hurting for money and they want more OEMs. Formula One can get away with having like 3 OEMs because of all the money in the sport, but NASCAR and IndyCar can't. But Honda's been dancing around it for years. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually they do come on. As for like a 5th, I have no idea. I mean, the problem is I don't think the average NASCAR fan would take very kindly to them putting in a manufacturer that doesn't have somehow kind of like this mean balance of both having a racing pedigree like Honda would, or Toyota or Chevy or Ford, but it also has to have a car that is stock. So they're not like Mercedes is never gonna, maybe in Formula One, but it's never gonna enter NASCAR. BMW is probably never gonna enter NASCAR before that reason. So it's hard to strike that balance. That's why Honda's like the one that makes sense. But will they ever do it remains to be seen. And NASCAR has enough strife on its hands right now. I don't know if a fourth manufacturer is all that close.
Chris, any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with Cam. Honda's been playing around it for a while. I think that picked up a little bit when Andretti Motorsports kind of kicked the rocks a little bit with Spire. And you've seen Gamebridge come on. I think you heard that a little bit. But, I mean, honestly, Brad makes a point. I mean, like Cam said, that we need more OEMs. I would like to see like a Dodge or even a Honda, come in, because it would give us a little more stability. But at the same time, I just don't know if there's anyone there that's really longevity-wise going to do it, the way that Brad or anybody in the sport would want it. Because like Cam said, BMW doesn't have like a stock car. Mercedes doesn't have that type of like stock car they could throw into that mix like Ford and them have. I feel like maybe Nissan. I mean, you could throw that out there because I think I see something in the news recently where like Nissan and Honda and a few, like one other, I think maybe Hyundai, we're all merging to become a big auto manufacturer. But even then, I feel like that might be a little bit of a stretch.
It was Nissan, Honda, and Mitsubishi.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, that could be something where you saw that. But even then, would you want 2 of the 3 in the same sport?
I'm a newer fan, and when they say that Dodge left a decade ago, I have no idea. I remember Dodge being a part of it when I was younger, but could someone fill me in on why Dodge left in the first place?
Money, the sport. Well, I mean, maybe Cam, Cam might feel a little differently, but I felt like it was money. Ironically enough, Brad Keselowski took them out on top, winning the championship the year they left. I just don't think they were getting the return on the investment into the sport they wanted.
And that's all it was. I mean, it's not really controversial. It's just that's what happened. Toyota came to the sport in the late part of the first decade of 2000s, and then Dodge saw their revenue kind of go, and they were like, well, we don't really want to be fourth fiddle, and they jumped because at the time I believe it was just Penske. I believe was the only team that was Dodge at the time. So they were putting all their eggs in one basket, and they weren't getting the return that they were hoping for.
BR, anything to add to the OEM conversation?
I do. There's a part of me that wonders. Obviously, I'm not saying this is going to happen anytime soon, but I really wonder if they ever do go with some electric car, if that's where we get the fourth OEM is from a pure electric company like Tesla, or I'm sure there's other electric car companies, but that's the only one that's like a dedicated to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's off the top of my head. So yeah, I honestly think we're probably gonna be stuck at 3 for a while. The only way I could see it being worth it for a team is if a dedicated electric car company wanted to be the first dedicated electric car OEM in NASCAR. I'm sure I would not. I'm sure I wouldn't put it past him for Elon Musk to be like, yeah, I can build the best NASCAR despite not knowing anything. I assume doesn't know anything, but yeah. So I think that'll become more of a realistic idea when the electric cars come to NASCAR. And even then, I don't know, because I can't imagine. I feel like they would probably try it out with like its own little series, because you gotta try it out. Just saying, all right, all the Cup cars are electric now without any real trial and error seems like a catastrophe waiting to happen. So even then, it may take a while, but I think if we get a fourth OEM anytime soon, it'll be an electric car company.
No,
Yeah,
I've got to take a look. Did I jump ahead of anybody?
No, I was just going to say.
Okay.
I was going to say I kind of can agree with BR there, too. Like I could see like a Honda coming in again with like an Andretti or somebody wanting to be the first, or the fourth OEM to come in, but with a specific team being the first, time they've made it into the sport. So I could see Honda being like, oh, let's sink a lot of money into Andretti because we already got this, partnership, and they're wanting to do it. That would be an instance where I could see it. But other than that, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to take a little bit before another OEM comes on.
Gotcha. All right, let's get out of the legal mumbo jumbo. Let's talk about some of the new faces and old spaces. Obviously, every season, we call it silly season for a reason. It gets a little wonky. Guys going to different places, going to different teams, moving up, moving down. And yeah, let's just go over that NASCAR roster. Obviously with this website pulled up the 2023 roster. That's awesome. Chase Briscoe is no longer in the 14. ESPN, are you any better? Nope, ESPN's not any better. Okay. While I go and find this, let's just talk about Stuart Haas exploding and everybody going elsewhere, with Briscoe obviously, I think, taking the top seat available in that open number 19 car, vacated by Martin Truex, leaving racing full-time, going part-time for races here and there, including the Daytona 500 unofficially. Or is it official? I don't know.
It's official. You just have to race him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then obviously Ryan Preece gets that third Roush Fenway Keselowski car. I think it's the number 60.
Yeah.
With the Kroger sponsor. Noah Gragson heads over to front row. I believe he took the 4 car.
Yeah.
and who is the other guy? Josh Berry taking the Wood Brothers car. So now that I've laid that out there, Chris, I'll kick it to you. Any initial thoughts about the 4 Stewart-Haas guys? Any expectations? And obviously, the big question is, how much better is Briscoe in that 19 car?
I mean, you touched on it. Briscoe got the top seat. I saw something on Reddit. It was a Reddit thread where someone said, "Don't be surprised if he pops off like Kyle Busch did his first championship year and just wins like 5 or 6 races out of the blue." That's a lot. I mean, I think the field's a little more even, but I mean, Larson did it. But I mean, are you going to put Briscoe up there with Larson on talent? I don't think you do that, in my opinion. But yeah, I think Briscoe's definitely got the best ride. The interesting too for me, I don't like Ryan Preece. I'm not a big Ryan Preece guy. I think he's solid, but I'm going to throw that out there. I like Josh Berry in the 21.
I do too.
Yeah.
I like that pickup because I think Penske has shown they're good over the last couple of years and their alliance with the Wood Brothers. I don't know if it's quite like 1 for 1, but even then, Josh Berry's known for getting the most out of a car. So that one's interesting to me. But also, if Front Row can get around the legal mumbo jumbo, Noah Gragson in that 4 car for them could be an interesting one too.
For sure. And BR, kick it to you. What do you expect out of Briscoe in your old favorite driver's chair?
It'll be interesting. I kind of agree. I don't know about 5 or 6, but I would not be shocked if you see Briscoe get multiple wins. The one thing I am interested in is how James Small would be with someone who isn't, at least as of now, a driver who's not going in the Hall of Fame, because he has been inconsistent. I will be generous and say the last couple of years of Truex's career, or full-time career, I should say. So yeah, that's my big concern is how Briscoe and Small will interact, because if you heard it, Truex and Small, they went out like they went at each other a lot. And like there was never any like real beef over it. It was just how they communicated. So I'm like, I don't know if that's going to exactly work with Briscoe, on top of the other concerns I have with Small without Truex. So, but the car is good enough. I think Briscoe is a good driver. He's at least good enough to get a win or two. So,
any expectations for the other drivers? Preece at RFK in the 3rd car, Barry in the Wood Brothers 21, or Gragson in the 4th.
I rate Josh Berry, really. I think I would not be shocked if he pulled out like a plate track win or something along those lines. I think he's a really, really good pickup for Wood Brothers. I think with all due respect to Harrison Burton, that's an exponential upgrade for a car that won it.
Hey, now Harrison Burton, he got them that 100th win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gonna pat myself on the back for calling that like 6 months in advance.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I really rate Barry. I think I would not be shocked if Win 101 comes this year for them.
Nope, me either. Cam, let's kick it to you. Briscoe in the 19 and all the others. Any expectations? Any thoughts?
I think Briscoe's a fine pick. I think he fits right into the Gibbs ethos. Like he's just the type of driver Joe Gibbs likes having. The second thing, I mean, it's hard to really have any expectations for anybody in terms of like just sheer win quantities because of the way this car is now. Like it really does take a Larson to pull off 5-6 wins. It really does take, Hendrick to do that typically. I mean, Ty Gibbs hasn't won yet. And
one of the predictions I missed last year. I thought he was going to go to victory lane multiple times.
So, but that's my point though. Is like you gotta always temper expectations when it comes to win quantities in the way that because of the car being spec and all of that. I echo what they say about Barry. I think he's a good driver. I think it's gonna really it's gonna one way or another is gonna expose what went wrong with the Wood brothers the last couple of years because a driver that nobody even rates, no one thinks is good, Matt DiBenedetto made the playoffs in that car not that long ago. And now the thing's spinning every week. So it's going to expose one way or another. If Barry isn't very good, then you start asking questions about the organization. If he starts, if his average finish is 10 places higher, then obviously we know what the problem was. Penske, I think, I don't remember, maybe it was BR said how about a plate win. I mean, that's very much in the cards. The Penske Fords, and obviously the fourth one are always just absurdly strong at those. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him run up front of one of those either and steal one. I think honestly one of the more interesting ones that's happened this whole offseason that I'm intrigued by is Noah Gragson, the 4 at Front Row. I think Chris mentioned earlier it's an ascending program there. They're getting better every year slowly. He brings all types of sponsorship. I mean, he's one of the most highly sponsored drivers in the field. So he's going to bring money. He's going to be a flagship driver there. I would not be surprised if that car runs a lot better than people think.
And Priest in the RFK car. I didn't hear many thoughts on that. Are we just kind of over it?
I just don't think that's going to last very long. I think they picked him because Kroger signed on to it, and he might have a year or two max there, and then they'll probably boot him for somebody that's somebody better. I think he's just a placeholder. I mean, Priest, I don't have any disrespect for the guy's talent, but he's not blowing anybody away at the cup level.
Yep.
No, for sure. I told Chris when that was announced, Priest is kind of, when in football we talk about bridge quarterbacks, he's a bridge driver. He's going to be with a first-time team that's really building it all together. He's going to just be the gel guy until they find somebody who can take that to the next level. And yeah, those are your 4 Stewart-Haas teams. And now I found a list of moves. I'll go over the ones that we don't really care about, and then I'll point out the ones that really do matter. Cody Ware coming back full-time in the 51 for Rick Rare Racing. Todd Gilliland switched cars. He's going from 38 to 34, still with Front Row. Ty Dillon goes to Kaleb in the number 10. Obviously, his teammate AJ Allmendinger coming back to NASCAR full-time. I'll take a second to talk about that. I feel like AJ Allmendinger is I know that he's a veteran, but I still feel like he got better as an oval driver last year in the Xfinity Series. I thought I saw him running in the front a lot more than I did in 2023. And obviously on the road courses, he's top 2 or 3 in the sport today. With SPG, probably he's bumping it down to 2 or 3 instead of being 1 or 2. Let's just take a pause on Allmendinger coming back. Chris, do you have any expectation for Dinger to go out there, win a Sonoma or a COTA or a Chicago street race and then end up or Mexico City?
He could
end up right back in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's Allmendinger's kind of MO. Show up to the road course and, kick everybody's tail. That's kind of his thing. So I could see that definitely. And you're right. He did get, better as an oval driver in the Xfinity Series. I just don't know that transitions to the Cup Series for him, just because, kind of like Cam said, these cars are so spec. It's hard. It's not like those Xfinity cars. But yeah, he could upset the playoffs. He could definitely do that on one of those early road courses by coming in and just winning one outright.
Any other thoughts on AJ Allmendinger from Cam or BR before I go back down the list?
I mean, he's kind of this ever-present, road course guy. I mean, I do think it's worth noting that the 16 car sucks. So, if you've noticed, I mean, he runs well at these things, just for something to blow up or something or them to make a strategy mistake, or the car he'll qualify in the top 10 and then show up on race day and he stays there, drops back, or the opposite. He qualifies like terribly and then he gets up to 10th because he's so good at it, so good at the road courses, but the car doesn't have the ability to compete for a win. So it'll really just depend on, I think, the equipment Kaulig gives him, because I do think minus Shane Van Gisbergen, he is the best road course racer in stock car racing. So yeah, I mean, it depends on what Kaulig gives him. That's really the bigger question to me than if AJ Allmendinger has the goods to compete for wins.
BR, any additional thoughts? Don't feel pressured. You can just say no and we can move on.
Not really. No.
Okay.
Shout out to Travis. Shout out.
No,
Travis.
that's why I took the pause, because our boy Travis is a big dinger guy. I had to show him a little bit of love. Now that his favorite driver's back in the Cup Series. How about Justin Haley driving the 7 full time for Spire? Obviously, that happened. They transitioned that a little early. They moved Corey LaJoie to Rick Ware Racing. He's going to have Rodney Childers as his crew chief, who is a top 5 crew chief in the sport. I don't know if he's like bona fide number 1 or not, but I think he's top 5 from everything that people tell me. So while I pull up the results that he had in that 7 car, Chris, I'll kick it right back to you. What's your thoughts on Justin Haley in the 7?
Yeah, I actually touched on this in my way too early piece that I put out on BellyUp the other day. I like the Kaulig stable, or not Kaulig, Spire. Sorry, Spire stable. Especially, I think Justin Haley's an interesting one. I think he's got potential, and to be back in the stable kind of one whole off season with a crew chief like Rodney Childers, that definitely has some potential. Again, though, Cam kind of touched on it with Spire. Or not Spire, with Kaulig. I think it's going to depend on the equipment. I really do. Like, I think Justin Haley's an okay driver, and I think, Rodney Childers makes, that a little better, that pair. But I'm not sold on whether or not they have the equipment just yet for him to drive to the front.
And the number 7 last year, in 7 races, the short Justin Haley brought up 1 top 10 with an average finish of 24.9 in 29 races in the 51 car. You obviously had those 2 top 10s that kind of put everybody on notice. Those finishes coming at Talladega, Watkins Glen, Darlington, and this the Daytona race? Did he finish 4th at Daytona? That was Corey LaJoie.
Yeah.
Never mind. I was tracking the 7 numbers and it didn't quite. So let me make sure I got this right. He got a top 10 in the fall Talladega race. That was Justin Haley's top 10 in the number 7. In the 51, he had the top 10s at North Wilkesboro, Darlington, and Gateway. North Wilkesboro doesn't really count, but Darlington and Gateway, P9, both ways. Cam, any thoughts on Justin Haley moving over to the 7 with Rodney Childers?
I mean, my first question when I heard about this, but before we knew that Haley was going to be the driver in the 7, is how much did they pay Rodney Childers? Because it must have been an ungodly amount of money. But the second thing on that is, I don't know. I mean, the garage has always been high on Justin Haley. That's why he keeps getting these opportunities. I mean, granted, usually in a not very good car, but he keeps getting these opportunities because the people in the garage think he's talented. So I'm kind of in a TBD with Justin Haley in that spot. I think it's gonna be an interesting dynamic in Spire, because I think clearly the most talented driver on that team is Carson Hocevar.
Yeah.
And then the veteran on that team is Michael McDowell. So where does that place Haley? But then Haley has the marquee crew chief, so you would think presumably would have the preference on equipment, but he neither has seniority nor the kind of like phenom prodigy attachment to him. So I don't really know where he falls on that. So I think, like Chris said, I think it's either which way the tide's going to lift all the boats and inspire. I don't think he's going to outperform his teammates. I think he's going to be as good as the rest of the teammates.
BR, any thoughts on Haley to the 7?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say is Haley does tend to be very solid on plate tracks, and with the way they are, maybe they can, I don't want to say fraud a win, but pull they get the luck of the dice on a certain day. I would be too shocked, but yeah, I mean, but yeah, no, I it'll be very interesting. Hosovar is indeed the most talented, but he also tends to get head loss at times. So that might be the one thing that pushes Haley a bit up the priority ladder if Hosovar has a few crash outs early on.
For sure. Obviously that Roval race and that Martinsville race, he was not the most popular guy back there in the garage. And let's just stick with that team. Michael McDowell moving to the 71. Obviously, he had a couple opportunities to pull off some big finishes and wrecked out. Obviously, at Talladega, he had that absolutely horrific block in front of Keselowski that shoved him into the wall and gave Tyler Reddick the win. And then obviously at Loudon, I know that I think that was a little earlier in the race, but he crashed, wrecked Blaney. I'm sure Cam was a big Michael McDowell guy that day. Obviously taking over for Zane Smith there. I think with two younger drivers like Haley and Hocevar, he can be a solid veteran presence, but I'm not sure how much really I'm expecting of him outside of, he's going to win a couple poles at these plate tracks.
Yeah, you beat me to that. I was going to say, I think he might win some poles because he did win like 6 of them last year. But I think the Michael McDowell move for him, performance-wise, might have been more lateral. I'm not sure yet. Like, everybody wants to hype Spire up, and I think Spire has potential. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't know if that was like a good move for Michael McDowell. He could have probably stayed at front row and done just as good. He probably got a bag, though, of money from Spire, so that explains the move.
And we can talk about who he's taking over for. Zane Smith, after a lot of we have no idea what's going to happen to this guy after SVG gets that third car with Trackhouse, and obviously it was kind of a weird transition. Zane Smith saying, we don't know what to do with you. He goes ahead and he hops in the 38 for Front Row Motorsports as Gilliland moves over to the 34, and then Gragson takes over the 10. We talked about Gragson. I think Gilliland is built for maybe a bigger 2025. Cam, do you have anything on Zane Smith in the 38? Do you think that maybe he takes a little bit more of a step forward? Obviously, I think he had some solid showings last year.
Yeah, he did. I mean, calling it lateral with any of these is the perfect word. I expect Spire and Front Row to run pretty similar to each other. I will say the one thing about the point about Michael McDowell winning some poles, I think that'll just be Front Row doing that. To get a pole at a plate track, you just press your foot to the floor and the engine does its job mostly. But no, I mean, McDowell thing was a bag. Like, he just took a bag to go there. That's all that was. I mean, he's an older driver. He saw the check and went, what the hell's the difference between the 71 and the 34? Not much. So that's just the general point of that. I think if any of the front row drivers are going to outperform the median of the team, it's probably going to be Gragson, because I think he is arguably the most talented. I mean, you can make an argument for any of the three, but he's going to have the most money in that car between Pass Pro Shots, Black Rifle, all that stuff. So I expect Gragson to kind of be the best driver there. I think Zane will be fine. I think he'll probably do more or less we did last year. I think the car will be a little more reliable, but that's about it. I mean, it's kind of a homecoming for him after he left them out of the Truck Series. So it's one of those just moves where you're like, okay.
And Zane Smith had 4 top 10 finishes, 2 top 5s. Nashville, he finished P2 in that wild few mileage race. Watkins Gled, P5. And I think that was a race where like all the Spire cars finished in the top 10. Michigan, P7, and Kansas, P8. Ken, BR, anything to add to the Zane Smith discussion? Again, don't feel forced to give an answer.
A toothpick changes everything.
How about? Go ahead.
No, it's like, yeah. I mean, I feel like if I'm front row, I would have wanted McDowell over Smith, but also I'm sure they probably weren't offering the bag that Spire was. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it just feels like, I don't want to say moves for the sake of moves, but like it was a move where someone who isn't all locked in, no disrespect to people who aren't, I that's not my intention, but where you people pull up to the 500 and they're just like, oh, that's a thing, all right, and then forget about it for a while.
And obviously, the big one, I think, is SVG taking the number 88, pulling in for Trackhouse Racing. Cam, I'll kick this off to you. You're the biggest SVG fan that I know personally. What do you make of this move? Any big expectations? Any thoughts on SVG being more than just that road course ringer? Anything SVG, go for it.
I mean, I thought it was weird that he took 88. I don't really know how to explain that one. But in terms of the like, he's been 97 his whole career. I didn't really understand it, but and it's just weird to me. It felt like it was just throwing back to like some nostalgia for no reason. But I'll come off that point. In terms of the performance, though, it's a disappointment if he doesn't at least win one, if not two, road courses anyway. It's still going to be a learning curve with the ovals. But that's also why last year, when you noticed that Trackhouse, when they put him on the track in those part-time roles, a lot of times it wasn't on road courses. It was at Charlotte. It was at, I don't remember exactly, but it was always on like ovals so that he could learn that. So we'll see how that translates. But in terms of like road courses, it would genuinely be a letdown, a severe letdown for that team if he doesn't make the playoffs simply off of winning a road course. And especially since they add Mexico City to the calendar, I know people aren't NASCAR fans aren't necessarily aware of that circuit, but that circuit, number one, is very conducive to NASCAR. Is really long straights, really high speed corners, and because of that, that's also going to he's going to have a field day there, most likely, as long as something doesn't go wrong mechanically. He's going to have a field day at that place. And so if he doesn't win, between that, Sonoma, Coda, which I don't know how he hasn't won that yet. Oh, that's also something to bring up, the fact that they're going to the other circuit. Since they're going to the shorter circuit at Coda, he may be in a different planet than the rest of them now. Because in that condensed circuit, it's going to look just like a supercar circuit. And all those guys there never have been on something like that before. So yeah, if he doesn't get one, if not two, and at least in the regular season, it'll be a complete letdown because that's what they put him there for. And I also like to see Red Bull and all these sponsors that had completely left the sport come back because of him too. So he'll be box office, especially at those, if nothing else.
And I did go back and look to see what ovals they brought SVG out to. They brought him to Martinsville. They brought him to Talladega, Darlington. They had him for both Talladega races. Charlotte, Las Vegas, Atlanta, and Daytona, the summer Daytona race. So he did get some quality next gen car Cup Series reps in some of those different kinds of courses. Chris, I'll kick it to you. SVG thoughts.
I'm like Cam. I think he one, if not two, is disappointing. I actually think that SVG could be I should probably stop there. I was going to say I think SVG could be the kind of the anchor that tips Trackhouse into that elite. If he could do that, go off and have maybe 2 or 3 road course wins or a shocking win on like a flat oval, something like a New Hampshire or Martinsville or something even. That could tip the scales for Trackhouse as a team, but I like him there. Again, I think it's smart, especially with all the road races on the schedule. You have to have a ringer like that in your lineup, especially if you want to win.
BR, any thoughts on SVG?
You know, I'm very excited to see. Obviously, more so to see how he does how handles a full season of the oval tracks. Obviously, road courses, yeah, I'm pretty sure he'll be all right, unless they just give him an absolute shit box, which I doubt.
And let's talk about some of the. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's just I'm very excited to see what he does and how he does at the oval tracks, and hopefully it'll probably, and I'm hoping he has a successful season beyond the road courses, because that might lead to more of a spotlight on NASCAR outside of the traditional spheres it's in.
For sure. Okay. Some of the new teams. Okay, go ahead. Who am I interrupting?
No, sorry, just a quick thing. I also think that if he has a really special season, it's going to really put a spotlight on the fact that there's a weak link on that team, and it's not Ross Chastain, and it's not Shane Bingensbergen. And if SPG rips off 2-3 wins, I know he brings a lot of sponsorship, but that perhaps is going to put a lot of pressure on Daniel Suarez, who I don't know when the last time any of you seen him compete for anything, but it's been a long time.
Atlanta last year.
The exception of a wild card race like that.
Daniel Suarez. I need to see his best performances last year.
He was really good in Atlanta.
Obviously he had the win over there.
Well, no, he's ran up front at like almost all of them.
Oh, really?
For some reason, he's just really good at Atlanta. But
he had 4 top 5 finishes. Atlanta obviously had the win. Texas, he was top 5. Vegas, the fall race, he was 3rd. And yeah, he was P2 in Atlanta as well. 9 top 10s, average finish of 17th. So solid year for all intents and purposes. But okay, some of the new teams that were developed. Obviously, Haas Factory. From Stuart Haas goes to Haas Factory team. 1 charter. Cole Custer will be driving. I believe they kept the 41. Will Cole Custer be better the second time around the Cup Series, Chris?
I'd like to say yes, but I don't think so. I just don't. I mean, Haas tried it for so long, and they just weren't. And I don't think that's going to change now, even after the years of Stuart Haas, if you even want to call that performance. I mean, Briscoe winning last year was a huge accomplishment for them as a team. So I think I don't know that Custer's going to be any better than he was the first time. They may be a top 15 team, bottom end of the top 15 maybe.
Any dissenting opinions on Cole Custer the second time around the Cup Series?
I mean, I have slight dislike. I think he's going to be worse than that. I mean, I really don't. I don't think that team. I think it's going to be bad. I think we're going to forget that team exists. If I may, to be honest. I mean, like, it's Joe Custer putting his kid in the car. Like, they held on to a charter, I think, because they couldn't sell it. To be honest, I think they had that charter left, and no one wanted to buy it at the price they were selling it, plus the lawsuit and all that stuff. So, I honestly think that they're bracing because they couldn't sell it, and so, yeah, I'd be surprised. I expect his average finish to be in the 20s. I don't think anyone's going to care about that team. I mean, if you take away a late race restart at a track that doesn't even run anymore, Cole Custer's career is just the Xfinity Series championship that he won the year prior. He's always just been a guy. He's an Xfinity level driver. So,
BR, anything to add?
Not really.
Good. Okay. Riley Herbst to the number 35 of 2311. BR, that's your team. I will let you have a thought this time. You're kicking it off with the Riley Herbst conversation.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's very interesting because obviously he has a lot of sponsorship money with Monster, but like they kind of already had it to Reddick. So I'm trying not to be disrespectful because it is the team I am a fan of, but like I don't know if the sponsorship that you already had via Reddick was worth putting him in the car. when you already had Corey Heim just waiting the wings. So yeah, I kind of like Priest. I kind of expect him to be a just a kind of a bridge to Corey Heim. The sponsorship money build up the operation of a third car, and then they'll put in Corey Heim in a couple years when time's more ready to go in the cup and the team is more ready for an inexperienced cup driver. Because especially considering the sponsorship money, I do understand why you would want, why you'd be hesitant to put Heim in there or whatever, but it feels like inevitable that someday he ends up in that car. Just so, yeah. Riley Herbst is Case Keenum with some sponsorship money, I fear.
Cam, anything to add to the Herbst conversation?
I think Riley Herbst his whole career arc is just bizarre. Like, he's been in the Xfinity Series for years. He was always the guy that everyone, because he raced for Haas, everyone was like, is he going to do anything anytime soon? Because like they always had some of the top equipment, and he was good but not great. And then he finally rips off a couple of wins, and all of a sudden he's elevated to that ride. It's just interesting because, in fairness, who knows? Maybe he's better than we think he is. Like, because it took him a while to get to that point. And Cup teams, I think in a lot of ways, I think they 2311 overcorrected from the problem that all these Cup teams have been having, where they've been yanking up these guys to the Cup Series too quick because they have money and all of that stuff. So they overcorrect to a guy that, yes, has money, but has been in the Xfinity Series for years. So they're not worried about him like wrecking the car. But it's really bizarre. I thought it was really interesting. Obviously they don't think Heim was ready to take that ride, which fair enough. But I don't know if it'll be Heim or whoever when it is eventually someone else, because your time as the hot prospect in this sport when you're in the lower series is very short. So maybe it'll be Heim, maybe it'll be someone else, but I don't imagine Hurt stays in that ride very long. But like I said, it's such a bizarre thing that it's almost like there's a part of me that's going like, do they? And I don't mean this I mean this in a genuine way, not in like a derogatory way. Like, do they know something we don't? Like, does Hamlin think something of Herbst that we just don't see because he races on Saturdays and didn't really start really popping up on the scene in a while? Like, is he even in this seat if he doesn't make that move in Indianapolis? So I don't know. It's bizarre. So I'm not really sure what to think of it. So
Chris.
Yeah, that's probably the most weird destination. I did not see that happening. Not him, anyway. I mean, I could have seen 2311 getting another team in another car, but I would have definitely not expected Riley Herbst. But I mean, like Cam said, maybe Hamlin sees something in him that we don't. I'm just not sure. That one's kind of the big question mark for me, because 2311 came on the scene, and they came on the scene relatively hot since Reddick got on there. I mean, Bubba had a win, but I mean, again, do you really want, no disrespect to Bubba, but do you want to put another driver in there that you have to be patient with? Because they've been so patient with Bubba for so long just for sponsorship money. Are you going to put, Riley Herbst in the car and give him 2 or 3 years because of sponsorship money? I just don't see it. I think it's a stopgap more so than anything. They build the team up, and then they look for a driver that's probably a little more talented.
Okay. All right. Those are your new faces and old spaces, old faces and new spaces. That's all sick. What's that?
Said whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah, right. All right. Let's talk about some of the things that are right in front of us. Obviously, the clash at Bowman Gray. Obviously, this is a track that has been raced in the Cup Series since 1971. It got a huge renovation. It's going to be pretty new. I don't know how big it is. Does anybody know how big the track is?
The length of the track or the size of the facility?
The size of the track, like a mile.
It's like an eighth of a mile or a quarter mile or something like that.
Yeah, it's a quarter mile at best.
It's so small. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's hard to really talk about what to expect between carnage or just kind of this regular old
Parade.
clash like we saw at the Coliseum the last couple of years. I only caught one clash race, which was last year. So, yeah, I'll talk about the format here a little bit. The field will be split into 3 practice groups, with each group receiving 3 sessions. Each competitor's fastest lap time from their final practice session will determine the starting lineup for the heat races. The fastest qualifier will be on pole for heat 1, second fastest on pole for heat 2, 3, 4. 4 heat races of 25 laps each, with only green flag laps counted, no overtime in play. The top 5 from each heat race advance to the clash. Last chance qualifier. Cars that do not transfer to the clash will compete in a last chance qualifier race with their starting position determined by where they finish in their respective heat races. The last chance qualifier is 75 laps with only green flag laps counted, no overtime in play. The top 2 finishers will advance to the clash. The main event will feature 23 drivers competing for 200 laps with only green flag laps counted. The race must end under green. A timed break will observe at the halfway point, much like last year. The first 22 starting spots for the clash is set through finishing positions in the heat races. Any thoughts on the clash moving over to Bowman Gray? Any optimism that it'll be better than what we saw at the Coliseum? Chris, I'll kick it to you.
I hope so. But I hope it doesn't turn into, 200 laps of bumper cars like the Clash did in the Coliseum. But I just don't know. These cars, like Denny Hamlin said 100 times in his podcast, these cars are so expensive. Are these guys really going to go out there and just beat the absolute crap out of them for a show? They didn't like they anticipated, I don't feel like, in the Coliseum. So I don't know if you're going to see it here. But I'm hoping. I like the history of Bowman Gray, the anger, the aggression, all that. I like that, that plays into it, but I just don't know. The sport's different than what it used to be, especially for stuff like this.
Cam, any additional thoughts on the clash here?
When I verified while you were talking, it is a quarter mile flat. But I just don't understand their obsession with running this in these bull rings. This car is not made for that. Honestly, even the old car, which raced great on short tracks, it's still not. NASCAR stock cars are not made for quarter mile tracks. There's not enough room. So I don't understand their insistence on that. I do like that it's at least like a NASCAR-ish venue. It's in NASCAR-ish country. Like, I think we should be in Southern California. Don't get me wrong. Like, we need to be in that market. But the thing in the Clash of the Coliseum, I didn't really like the idea. I mean, if I had my preference, I'd just send the thing back to Daytona, but they're never going to do that because of the cost. But I just think it's weird. I think you're going to see much of the same that you saw at the Coliseum, which is the only way you're going to be able to pass is to move them, and you're just going to see at the end of the race an accordion effect, and that'll be that. I think there will be excitement in the area anyway, which will be better than what they got in California, which is a plus, I suppose. But and I know this might not be popular with a lot of fans, but I just think they should put it back on the Daytona road course. Like, I don't think they should be leaving.
I was just thinking that. Would we prefer something like that? I obviously have no experience with the Daytona road course. Maybe that's something I need to go back and watch. But
it didn't light the world on fire. Like, it wasn't an amazing track, but these teams don't want to leave Daytona and come back to Daytona. They've made that very clear. And if you also don't want to race on the oval, which is what they should be doing, but they won't because of the cost, is running on the road course. I mean, the Clash, I understand it's the first showing every year of NASCAR, so they want to try to get the ratings up, but you're not going to get the ratings up if you don't put it back on one of these big ovals. So if you're not going to do that, just put it on the road course. I mean, it's not going to thrill you. I mean, with the exception of the finish between the 12 and the 9 in the 1 year, but it's not going to thrill you. But it doesn't seem like there's a medium for this. Like, it doesn't seem like there's a solution that's going to satisfy both the need for ratings and the team.
BR, anything to add to the Clash discourse?
Just do a straight drag race down Colfax, in my view, so I can see a race without having to drive 8 hours.
No, great, even better. Put it back on the beach. Put the mud flaps on like they do with the dirt race, and just have them go across the beach. They used to do it back in the 50s. Sure. Like at this point,
Why not?
if you want ratings,
There you
put 'em
go.
back on the
Yeah.
Cody Ware is going to be in the water, but
Chris, do you have any innovative ideas for the Clash and how to fix it?
Yeah, I'm with Cam and BR. Let's just go running on the beach or the mud at this point. I mean, it'd be more entertaining. I mean, that's all we're running it for, right? To ratings at this point. We're not running it for points or championship. Well, I think you get a playoff point now if you win. I could be wrong on that. I think that might be the duels. But either way, yeah, anything at this point.
the duels you get like regular season points based on where you finish. The Clash, you don't get anything.
Yeah, so there you go. Ratings.
If you want to bring back dirt racing, just make the Clash a dirt race. Like if you're going to make it a spectacle and that's all they want, do something ridiculous. Just do something absurd. Like don't just make this bull ring thing where we just watch dudes just like T-bone each other on the interstate. Like
No,
yeah. I if I wanted to do that, I'd just hop in my car and drive onto I-70 because
I'll tell you, these
on
New
there.
England winters, if you want to see some interesting drivers, you come up to I-95.
I'm sure. Oh yeah. Every time there's a spick of, a grain of snow on the ground, even though in Denver it's something everybody, everyone forgets how to drive the second.
The drama surrounding winter is just unbelievable. Everybody forgets how to drive.
Yeah, and I understand it if it's like a place that like how a lot of the South got a lot of
for sure.
A lot for their standards.
Chris was sending me a video of his back porch, and he's like, "So what am I supposed to do with this?" So I'm like, "You take a shovel and then you move it."
Yeah, but it's ridiculous. Yeah, that I don't know how it.
Could we see our first red flag for snow?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I
wonder, like, maybe put it in, like, do another street race. I don't know. That might be too much for a non-point race thing. But like Cam and Chris said, you got to try. Watch people. It's going to be either a parade of cars or just bumper cars. Like, I don't see much appeal in that. Like, if you're gonna just try a spectacle, do something absurd. Like
race through a parking garage.
Yeah, there you go.
Or like rate. Yeah, like go to like do a dirt race at, I don't know, if like Churchill Downs, where they do it where they do the Kentucky Derby at, or something like a dirt race where they do the Kentucky Derby.
Mm-hmm.
Just you got to try something different. And so I guess in their defense, they are trying something different, but something different in terms of the type of course, because it is basically just I don't want to say the same, but a very similar type of course, or it is a very similar type of race.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's jump to 2025. The season is right upon us. We can almost feel it. First things first, I wanted to go over my predictions last year, and then let's look at what Chris wrote in his article. What was it? Earlier this week? Last week? Earlier this week. Last week. It's only Tuesday. My predictions, all 4 Hendrick drivers will return to the playoffs last year. Got that one right. Ty Gibbs hits victory lane multiple times. That didn't work out. Stuart Haas is absent from the playoffs. That didn't work out either. Took it to the last race. Martin Truex Jr. misses the playoffs and retires. It's pretty close.
That. By the way, that was me. I gave him the idea for that one.
Yeah, you did. So we went 2 for 4, 50% hit rate. Not bad.
Two and a half.
1.5 actually.
Yeah, 1.5. 1.5 for the 4.
But Chris, you went ahead, and I think yours were a little bolder than mine, truthfully.
Yeah.
Do I just want to start with the big one? Open this can of worms.
Yeah, you can if you want to.
Oh boy, I have not read this, so I have no idea what.
You guys are gonna get. We're gonna get a full live reaction here. His first one Denny Hamlin goes winless.
I agree.
Cam agrees. That was not what I was expecting. Who do I want to go first for this? Chris, explain yourself, and then
It's a lot of talk around that team, around that 11 team. You lost FedEx late last year. Now I saw something on Twitter the other day where Mavis Tire, they were on the car as a main sponsor. They left. Gabe Hart took a role with JGR higher up, so he's going to have a new crew chief. I'm sure he's going to have some sort of relationship with him because he's been in that organization for so long, but still. And then you've got all the lawsuit stuff around 2311. I just that's a lot of noise surrounding one guy. And I think Denny Hamlin's a good race car driver. Don't get me wrong, but he hasn't went winless since 2018, to be specific. I looked it up in that article. I think it's going to get to him after a while. Plus, he's kind of the old man in the stable now. I mean, you could have made that argument last year with him and Truex, but now he is the guy. He's the veteran driver there, in my opinion. Of that team. They're all veterans, but I just don't see him winning. I think the field's too even, and with everything going on around him, I just don't think he's going to be able to do it this year.
Now, Cam, I was shocked when you said I agree. Flabbergasted, jaw was on the floor.
Well, I mean, I like Denny Hamlin. I think that's no secret. But and if I'm being completely honest, he'll probably steal one, but the overarching point of him taking a decline in performance, I think, is almost more likely than not. Like Chris said, there's just so much noise. There's the lawsuit. He's losing his crew chief. They're bringing in a new driver. The Gibbs, outside of Christopher Bell, wasn't very good last year in comparison to what they would like to see out of their cars. So I think he's gotten to a point, as great as he is, 50+ wins, all the Daytona 500, all that stuff. I think he's very clearly the second best driver in that lineup now, behind Bell. So yeah, I mean, does he go winless? I don't know. He's so good at the short tracks. He's probably gonna steal one, But in terms of just the overarching point of a precipitous decline in performance, I honestly think it's more likely that it is not.
BR, anything to add to the Denny Hamlin discourse?
Well, I mean, and on top of that, there's always going to be the is this finally going to be the year he wins the title discourse noise. That's always going to be there until should he ever win a championships on top of everything else. So yeah, do I think he's going to go winless? No, he's too good to go not at least luck his way into one win. But yeah, I certainly agree that it'll be much more of a down year than what we have seen. So I see the vision with that one.
Yeah, you did a good job, Chris. Good job. All right, next one. Trackhouse becomes dominant. Now, Chris, when you say dominant, what's the definition?
I think you team wins for Trackhouse. You would have to see 5 to 6 wins as a team. Just in my opinion, if not a little more. But that's with me kind of giving you a handicap because I'm not a big Suarez fan performance-wise. I like the guy. I think he's super cool, but I just don't like him performance-wise. I don't know that he deserves that spot anymore. And Cam kind of touched on it earlier. If SVG comes out and Ross Chastain comes out and they have solid, really good 1-2 win, if not, 3 wins somehow seasons, that's going to put the hot streak on Daniel Suarez. But I think if you see Trackhouse go off and win 5-6 races as a team, they become into that at least lower end top tier team. I think you would have to be a Hendrick, Gibbs, Penske, and then number 4 solidly. You could probably talk about putting Trackhouse there.
BR, anything to follow through with that?
Sort of related, but sort of not. I would argue that at this point, Penske has passed Joe Gibbs in the pecking order.
Yeah, that's true. I could go with that just a little bit too, at least in recent. But yeah,
but anyways, that's besides the point. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about necessarily dominant, but because you're going to probably get multiple wins just from SVG on the road course. So assuming he has the season we expect, you're kind of going to get 40, maybe 50% of the way to a dominant per se season there. So say SVG wins two road courses, just whatever. I could see them as a whole collective finding 3 other wins. So yeah, does it happen? Who knows? But I see the vision with that one.
Cam, 3 to 5, or what do you say, 5 to 6 wins
as a
per
team.
Trackhouse?
Yeah,
As a team?
I'm shooting 5 to 6. Yeah, because they don't have a talent like Larson or Reddick, in my opinion.
I just think it's an interesting take. Not saying it's like a bad take. It could easily happen, but I do think it's an interesting take considering the slow decline of the team since 2022.
Yeah.
Not that they're bad or anything, but I'm saying in comparison to having a car in Phoenix to 2023 to 2024, they have slowly dropped off. But in terms of get 5 or 6 wins, I mean, I think realistically you can expect Bingus we're going to get 2. Even if it's such you go, all right, Suarez lucks into another, you still need 2 to 3 from Chastain, which could happen. I believe in guys' talent, but I think it's a little lofty. But in terms of like, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Like it could easily happen. It just depends on really where they are as a team, because like, not that they were bad, like they were good, they were all right last year. They're a good team, but it's like the small little ticks down ever since that kind of like magical year they had with Chastain in 2022.
Alrighty, Chris, good job. Got pretty universal agreement from the cast. All right, in the spirit of you dropping your predictions, Cam, BR, not to put you on the spot, I'm putting myself on the spot as well. I want us to come up with one take each. It doesn't have to be super, super bold. The bolder, the better, I think. But think on it for just a couple of seconds. I'll drop mine. And Chris, this might piss you off a little bit. I think by the end of the season, we're going to be talking about Chase Elliott, not as like the 4th driver as far as popularity, but the 4th driver as far as who's performing the best. I thought Bowman finished the season really, really strong. Then obviously the Bozempic gate happened, but it was a playoff run, not to sneeze at. It was really, really good. I think by the end of the season, we're going to be looking at Chase Elliott like, God, just 1 or 2 wins over the last handful of years. Like, is it still there? And I think Bowman should continue the momentum that he built off the end of last year and carry it into this year. And that could be my fanboy take, but I think that's what we're going to be talking about. Like, God, what happened to Chase Elliott the last couple of years? And Bowman's number 3.
Let me throw this out there for you. I don't know if I want to go as far as saying that just as a Chase Elliott fan, but I almost did put Bowman having a career year on there because I do see that. But I also just like at the same time, it's Chase Elliott. It's kind of like Dale Jr. Like, come on. It's money at this point for Hendrick. They know they're getting that money, that revenue. So
well, no, I'm not saying that Chase is going to get booted out of the seat or anything like that. But us as fans, we're going to be looking at it and saying, God, is Chase Elliott really the worst performing driver on this team right now? Like that was my take on it. So, BR, have you thought of one?
I have a few if you don't have one yet.
I have
has
not.
a few.
Go ahead.
Cam has a few. All right,
the first one is I completely disagree with the Chase Elliott take. I think he wins 3 wins. I think he gets 3 wins next year. I mean, he might get 4. I think he's too good. That team itself, not even just Hendrick, just the individual car team within Hendrick is too good. I think they've been off kilter for too long, and nothing. And not for nothing, he was the most consistent driver in the field last year. He just didn't really win. So no, I disagree with that. The second thing is I think the Penske stranglehold gets broken next year. As much as I am a Penske fan, that formula can't work forever, where you're just bad for 5, 6, 7, 8, in some cases months, and then all of a sudden you turn it on and you win Phoenix because no one can figure you out. I can't imagine that happens again, especially if Christopher Bell gets into the race, because when Blaney won, he blew. The only guy on the field that had any speed for him, really, outside of Chastain, who won the race, was Bell, who blew a brake rotor, and we never really got to find out. And then last year, he missed it on whatever that was in Martinsville.
Yeah.
And so I think the Penske stranglehold gets broken because it just has to at some point. Like, teams, you can't run that type of formula for too long. Like, eventually, one of these teams, especially between Hendrick, Gibbs, whoever, somebody's gonna figure out how to win Phoenix, because if you haven't noticed, they don't really win the spring Phoenix race. They always win the fall one. So I think the stranglehold gets broken there. Chris took my Denny Hamlin pick. I was actually going to say that. I just think there's going to be such decline. I think Bubba Wallace wins a race, probably, maybe two. I think he's gotten to a point where he's just good everywhere, and that was always his biggest problem, is because he seemed to be only good at the intermediate track, because that's where 2311's kind of strengths were. But I think he's gotten to a point where I think he's just good enough everywhere. Yeah, and then in terms of Hendrick, I think they all win. I think all four of them win. So I think it's going to be hard at the end of the year to be like, this guy was clearly the fourth one, because with the exception of Larson, who's Larson, I think the other three are gonna win enough, are just gonna all win to where you're like, oh well, this is Hendrick being Hendrick.
BR, any takes yet?
Sort of, kind of taking it. I don't know if I don't fully agree with it myself, but just throwing it out there. Christopher Bell is the only Gibbs driver to win this season.
Ooh, that's a hot one. I like that.
I could see it. I mean, not really good.
Yeah, do I fully believe that? No. Like, I'm sure Hamlin will back his way into one of the short track or something, but let me word it better, is at the end of the season, Bell will be like he will be in a different, like, not stratosphere, but like there will be a clear difference between Bell and everyone else at Joe Gibbs. There might already be one, but
What was Denny's last win last year? Was it Richmond in the
Dover.
spring? Dover, that's right. Still a very long time to go without.
I'm just imagining the heads rolling at Gibbs if only one of the four cars wins the entire year.
yeah.
Like, if you want to send Joe Gibbs into an early grave, I think that's how you do it. Like, that would be
Washington wins the Super Bowl, and then Joe Gibbs Racing has a shitter. It's all over for him, I fear.
Yeah, I mean, that would just be so wild. But I mean, I could see it. I mean, Briscoe in a new car with a crew chief nobody rates. Gibbs hasn't won yet, so you can't assume he's going to win. And so that just leaves Denny Hamlin. And then another bold take I thought of, because I think it's going to happen, because I think it's been a story for too long. In my experience in the sport, when something's a story for too long and somehow happens, I think Kyle Busch wins.
I'm looking forward to that. I thought he had it in the bag at Daytona. I
don't know where. I don't know where. I just think he's going to win one of the 36 races.
Yeah.
I mean, he had speed at the end. He was starting to put it together.
And Childress, and for whatever reason, the Childress cars have showed up at Daytona in the last few years.
Does Kyle Busch finally get the 500 win that he's been looking for?
That was a pick he made a couple, or it might have been his first year with RCR, I thought. So, I mean, I could see it.
I mean, if you want to talk about something to get some ratings for a short time, that's how you do it.
Heck
Yeah. No. Cam stole my Bubba. I was going to say that Bubba Wallace gets a whip.
Has he won in that 23 car yet? I know he won for Kurt in the 45.
No.
Wait, did he? Was it?
Well, he won the Talladega race in the 23. I thought he meant after that.
Yeah, I was going to say his only one, or his first one was in the 23.
Yeah,
I assumed you meant after that one.
No, I was thinking of when he won. Was it Kansas in the 45?
I guess that would have been when you were really tuned in, huh? been that
Yeah,
long?
no, 2023 was the first year.
Yeah, he won that in 2020. Yeah, just years just all go together.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, what else do I have on the docket? Okay, obviously, Prime taking over for some of those spring races. TNT's taking over for those races. I believe Junior is on both squads, right? Prime and TNT.
Mm-hmm.
Has it
And
been
then-
announced? I think they're the only ones officially, unless I've missed it, that hasn't announced their announced group yet.
I thought I
anyone-
saw.
I thought it was supposed to be. I know Junior and Letarte. Maybe they didn't announce the third one.
Yeah.
Amazon Prime commentator, NASCAR.
Because
Yeah.
Fox is obviously the same dude.
Adam
Yeah.
Alexander and Steve Letarte will join Dale Jr.
Oh, that's gonna be
on TNT and Prime.
I like that. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah,
The only
that's
thing I
fine.
can think of to make that better is instead of him, it was Alan Bestwick, but BR and Kaleb probably don't even mess with it.
Mm-mm.
I'm not even sure. Chris might not. It's been so long since Alan Bestwick called
Nope.
NASCAR races.
I know Alan Bestick. Yeah, that
Okay.
would be a good one.
But
So yeah, we'll have some different stuff for sure. I think is this the first year that NASCAR is doing that in-season tournament like for real?
Yeah.
Right?
This is
Yeah.
the first time they've embraced it.
Have
And
you
it's
guys performed well when you've done those brackets, or have you crapped out like me?
it's too random. It's hard to.
Yeah.
Sports too random. Like it gets to a point where like even if you're like a
Bowman
fan-
finishes behind John Hunter Nemechek at Gateway because he blows his brakes.
if you're a fantasy NASCAR guy, like it's gotten to a point where it's like you look at the speed on Saturday, it doesn't even seem to matter most of the time now, which is weird because you think with a spec car that it would tell you everything, but it tells you nothing now.
Now, Chris can attest. I've been getting my ass kicked in NASCAR fantasy, like bad. But I won our pool last year, so what's that? Yin and Yang.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah,
You jumped out to a lead really early in the season that nobody could.
Yeah, you tried your hardest to bottle that.
I did. It was bad.
You really you tried your best to not win that. You were trying to hand it to someone else.
From like Brickyard to maybe like Kansas, I was just bottoming out every single week.
Yeah. And at the start of the playoffs too, if I recall, you had a bit of a downturn, but like the round of 8, you just said, "All right, enough of this."
Yeah, locked in.
And like one singular person wasn't performing well enough to like catch him. There were just different people winning every week, so it just kind of kept his point.
No, I was sending Chris the scores every week. Like, dude, I don't gotta read anymore. I'm toast. Thankfully, we did all right. Mexico City, obviously, we talked about a little bit earlier. That should be fun. The schedule change, obviously, a lot of talk. I should have pulled that up too. Just kind of wrapping up.
Talladega in the round of 8 is an abomination.
Yeah, that was just what I was thinking of. Which one of those super speedways was in the round of 8? Chris, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I like the schedule changes. I think, but I don't know. I mean, Mexico City is going to be fun. It's new. Bowman Gray is going to be fun because it's new the first year. If it doesn't turn into the Clash in the Coliseum, but I mean, the playoffs have kind of provided entertainment, which is what we want. I don't think that's going to change. I mean,
Homestead obviously getting kicked out of the playoffs, but the hope there is that those renovations help it to get back its championship week bid over Phoenix next year or the year after. Obviously, they moved a couple of tracks into the playoffs. Worldwide Technology Raceway, I guess that's called St. Louis, right? New Hampshire Motor Speedway, I'll be there. Moved into the playoffs. They kept the Roval. They moved this Talladega into the round of 8, as Cam pointed out. And the championship's still in Phoenix. So
it's the most inexplicable playoff schedule I've ever seen because this car, everyone knows where its biggest weakness is, flat ovals, and it said let's put 2 of them in there. And I know you like it because it's not going to rain. It's not going to rain out, which respect. But like, this car doesn't race well on those tracks, and they put 2 of them in there. Like, I don't comprehend it. And now there's 2 super. And now not only is there 2 They moved Talladega to the round of 8 for what? Like, it's already bad that it's in it. Like, I don't think it should be in the playoffs at all, but they're going to do it because of the ratings. But then you put it where when the points matter the most for the drivers trying to get into the championship 4, you put it in the round of 8 where if you get caught up in somebody else's mess, you better win Martinsville, I guess.
That's oh, unbelievable. BR, any thoughts on the playoff schedule and how they screwed that up?
Yeah, I mean, I would just be repeating what they said. It's a shambles of a schedule.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to some fall racing in Loudon. I think just weather-wise and feel-wise, I think that's the best place to put it as far as putting it in the playoffs. Obviously, mixed bag. But I do enjoy the thought of not racing in the middle of July where I burn my face off.
It's not the track's fault; it's the car's fault. Like, it's not,
yeah, no, for sure.
Like, it's not Loudon's fault. Like, yeah, it should theoretically be there, but the racing's just not going to be very good.
Hopefully they fix that in the next generation. Remain optimistic, right? All right, let's close the show with this. It says drivers to watch, but I don't really want to go with that. I want to go with talking about, get a little more personal here. Talk about our favorite drivers, what we expect of our favorite drivers, and what makes the season so interesting for us is watching our favorite drivers go at it and hopefully win a race or two and feel really good about it. So, Chris, I'll start with you. Chase Elliott got the win at Texas last year, the final win in that Hooters paint scheme. Obviously, he gets the addition of the Prime paint scheme now. What do you expect to Chase Elliott in 2025?
Well, I could go with the typical fanboyism and be like, he's going to win a championship. But no, I don't think that's happening. I'd like to see that happen, but I'm going to say Cam kind of hit my goal earlier, 2-3 wins. I'd like to see 2-3 wins. Any more than 2-3 wins, and I'm going to be ecstatic because I think he's overshooting. Do I think it's impossible? No, but he's going to be Chase Elliott. He's going to be consistent as long as the equipment's there, I feel like. And Alan Gustafson is going to make good decisions. So I'd be good with 2 to 3 wins, and then maybe he could turn it on in the playoffs. I'd be happy.
BR, where are you expecting Bubbles Wallace to fit in all this?
Yeah, I'm just hoping we get a win, make the playoffs, get out of the first round. Yeah, hopefully, and hopefully Reddick again, gets to Phoenix. Maybe wins the championship, but yeah, Bubba hopefully wins a race, gets and at least advances one round in the playoffs. Those two things, maybe not necessarily linked, although obviously it'd be cool if it was in some way, but with Bubba, I'm just hoping for a win and or making it to the round of 12 in the playoffs. With Reddick, maybe hopefully just, the team is good enough if they're locked in to win it all. So hopefully they get locked in and they get, because the storylines would be very fun if 23-11 wins the title with the lawsuit in the background.
I agree. I thought it would have been hilarious last year too. I was kind of pulling for it.
Been.
Cam, what's your expectations for one young Ryan Blaney?
I mean, I think he's gotten to a point where he's established himself where he's really as good as anyone in the sport at this point. Like, he is just in the exception of like literally just Phoenix, and even then, you can argue he's faster than him. He just flat out beats Joey Logano every week now, and so. It depends on Penske too, because they like to forget there's a season until about June. But I mean, multiple wins is like minimum at this point. If he can get to Phoenix, he's instantly the favorite, because how can you say he's not after what's happened the last 3 years, where he's either been first or second at that track? Countless times at this point. Like, the fact an insane stat if you're not paying enough a lot of attention is he's never won at that track, which is mind-boggling to me. But I mean, he's the instant favorite if he gets to Phoenix. The question is, will he get to Phoenix? And then him losing Homestead, ironically, is out of the playoffs is a big problem because he's been, I think his top 5 streak there has been going on for a while now. It might have been a streak, but he's got a lot of top 5s recently.
I can check that.
And then Martinsville, obviously, he's as good as anyone. So, yeah, I mean, he's going to contend for the title. It's just, can he survive the format, the zany schedule? I mean, he's probably the best plate racer in the sport, so maybe Talladega will help him. It depends on if he can survive till the end. But
in 3 of the last 5, he's had top 3s, top 2s, P2, the last 2 races there, P17 in 2022, P29 in 2021, and P3 in 2020.
Yeah, it's only recently he's really started to turn on there. But yeah, I mean, maybe Talladega will help him because he is the best plate racer in the sport, probably. But then
Talladega is nothing you want to bet on for sure.
Yeah, so his luck he'll wreck. So
no, right.
But no, I mean, minimum a few wins, like 2 wins is probably the minimum, and then hopefully he can get back to Phoenix.
I was gonna joke Bowman giving him the Bowman shove into the wall at Talladega like he did last year.
His luck on plate tracks has been awful recently. Like he won Talladega in the fall a year before last. But outside of that, he seems to just take hits that would kill a man 30 years ago recently.
No, right. Speaking of Alex, I expect bare minimum 1 win. I felt, I don't want to say lucky, but I felt like I was really fortunate to get 1 win out of Chicago last year with all the rain that was going on, Reddick chasing him down and hitting the wall. And then obviously once he got that, he might have been competing for a win maybe a couple more times after that. So I think getting 1 win is the standard for sure. And then everything beyond that, I really hope that he has a run like he did in 2021, just 2 years before I was a fan. And hopefully he doesn't break his back like the first year as a fan. That was awful. But I think he'll make the playoffs. I think he'll be strong again because I have no reason to believe he won't be. And maybe if we don't have the Bozempic controversy, he'll be in the round of 8. So that's my hope. Really hoping for it. Excited for Daytona. Excited for the Clash coming up. And we'll end this podcast only about an hour and a half. Thank you for watching the pilot. Cam, BR, Chris, any parting words for the fine people at home?
Tune in for the next episode, everyone. They're only going to get better from here.
Absolutely. Love the optimism. Thank you for watching Speed Geeks. Make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you follow the page on Facebook. Might get a Twitter account going. I don't know. I'm not good at Twitter. So I might have to pass that on to you.
We'll see. I might do it. Yeah.
We'll have that set up, and we will see you all after the Clash pre-Daytona. So enjoy the rest of your week, and have a great night.